اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهذه إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره مقدار العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أفضل صلاة وتام تسليما على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ورضي الله تعالى عن السادة التابعين علماء عاملين وأئمة أربعين مجتهدين مقلديهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Welcome to another The Soullutionz podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Imam Muhammad Abdullah Ameen, along with Amir Khalil Abdullahi and Ustad Brother Saleh Abdul Mujeeb. Tonight's discussion is on understanding the Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To all those who are watching right now on YouTube, share the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that we can get the YouTube algorithm going. And if you're watching on Facebook, like the video, share the video. Share the video to your page, share the video to any other groups that may benefit from it that you're in, and subscribe to the page. All right, like the Tajdeed Sunnah page and like the Master Uthman that Folio page. In tonight's discussion, there will be a number of things that will be discussed in this topic. Originally, I was trying to wait to see who else was going to come on first, and they gave the introduction instead of me because I had another topic in mind. However, understanding the Sunnah is important. Is way more important of understanding the Sunnah and holding to the Sunnah and following it, because this is the source of what Tajdeed comes from. Reviving the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and destroying innovation. The Sunnah is something that has to be upheld. Right? It has to be upheld. However, you look at when you're making wudu, right? When you're making wudu, you make the fara'id of the wudu and you make the sunnah of the wudu. Without them both, you have an invalid wudu, right? The purpose of the sunnah of the wudu is to complete the wudu. And how the usul is that if you start your wudu off and you start with the sunnah, once you begin with the fara'id of the wudu, that was obligatory in the wudu, and you forget another fara'id, or you forget a sunnah after that, and you go to another fara'id, you can't go from a fara'id back to a sunnah that you missed. Like, for example, you began your wudu with the intention, and you wash the hands, right? Wash the hands 3 times. This is not a part of the wudu. Then you begin with the sunnah. You wash out the mouth, right? 3 times. Wash out the nose 3 times. Say you washed out the mouth and you forget to wash the nose, but you go from the mouth to the face. The face begins the second part of the fara'id of the wudu, right? Then you wash the arms, the right hand up to the elbow 3 times, left hand up to the elbow 3 times, and you wipe the head, right? And then you take fresh water and you wipe the ears, right? And then after you wipe the ears, you wash the feet. and you remember you forgot a sunnah. So you got to go back and wash the nose out 3 times, because you cannot go from, if you miss a sunnah and go to a fara'id, you can't go back from the fara'id back to a sunnah. Right? So it's very important. It's very important. So a part of the sunnah is also how we dress, the same as the sunnah of relieving oneself, right? The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, as it relates to relieving oneself, is just not recommended that we squat, right? It's just not recommended that we squat. We have to squat, because this is what the Prophet ﷺ did, right? This was his sunnah. Were there were reports to where the Prophet ﷺ, he stood up by he relieved himself standing up, right? And he urinated standing up. In this particular hadith, he was standing by a trash pile of a nation of people, and he urinated by standing up. There's two understandings of this hadith. One understanding is that the Prophet ﷺ obtained an injury in the battle, and he could not squat to relieve himself, so he stood. Another understanding of this hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ had an izar, and he was standing by him being next to this trash pile. He didn't want to squat and splash najasa up onto his izar, so he relieved himself while standing. But his sunnah is to relieve himself by squatting in a low position. This is very important. So um, we cannot discredit or downplay the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How do an individual begin to Allah Ta'ala bless the individual to see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a dream? He upholds the sunnah, right? And the sunnah is so important that it's actually synonymous with the book of Allah. How is it synonymous with the book of Allah? Because Aisha radiallahu anha said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Quran. His character is the Quran, and it's understood that his character is part of his sunnah, right? His outward character is his sunnah. So his character is the Quran. So this would make the Quran synonymous with his sunnah. Now the hadith and the sunnah is not synonymous. However, the hadith is a evidence for his sunnah. It's an evidence for it. Why is it an evidence? Because this evidence explains, and it gives tafsir to certain actions and characteristics of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So to say that to wear the sutra to watch, right, or to wear the overgarment, or to wear the thobe, or to wear the kufi, or to wear the turban is just recommended, you hate the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You hate the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is not just recommended. This is his mannerism. This is how he dressed. We learned this from the Shama'il, of Imam Tirmidhi. We learn from the Shifa of Qadi Iyad about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mannerisms, right? So to just downplay it, to say that, oh, it's just sunnah, it's not fault. You don't have to practice it. I don't know if anyone can hear me, how well anyone can hear me, if they can hear me at all.
Yeah, we can hear you out.
Amir Khalil,
No, I can hear you.
can you hear me? All right. Okay, so you mean to actually downplay it, say that it's only recommended. To wear white on Jumu'ah for men, and to wear all black for women on Jumu'ah. I mean, to the masjid for Juma is only recommended is to actually downplay the Sunnah. You know what I'm saying? Because what's more important of Allah, you know, what's more important that causes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to move to raise an individual's maqam and harakat in ranks, raise it in ranks, how they apply the sunnah in their life, right? So I'm pass the mic to Amir Khalil Abdullah since he's on here. And
نعم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه وسدد التابعين وعلماء أملين وآئمة أربع مجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So we want to talk a little bit about understanding the Sunnah because this is something that I've seen that's been problematic in understanding over the years. It's been promoted a particular way, right? And so it's been promoted a certain way. Some people, and I'm just speaking about just America, some Muslims, they disregarded it and said that, you know, they'll accept some things of the practice of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Not from a scholarly disagreement, okay? Not from a scholastic disagreement. Like when you're dealing with issues of fiqh, and we're going to touch on that too. So they're not disagreeing with the Sunnah from that perspective, but rather they were more so speaking in an authoritarian uh, standpoint, like, you know, an authority. You know, they were the Imam, you know, and so there were things that were happening, and some of the things that were transpiring were egged on by the ignorance of other people as well. But they kind of like put up this line of defense, like as if they were trying to protect themselves, if you will, if that's the best word, you know, against people who ridicule people for not following the Sunnah, right? So what I find is the complexity with us here in the West is that sometimes instead of finding the middle ground, we like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you had those who rejected the Sunnah. And let's get into the definition because somebody asked that question, right? Let's get into the definition of Sunnah, and this is the only thing I'll read from a particular, from a particular text. Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, he mentions in his book called the Ihya Sunnah wa Ikhbar al-Bid'ah, he quotes that as far as the scope of the Sunnah, all right, in definition, if you're taking notes or if it's something you want to, memorize. So there's things that when you're dealing with it from a scholastic standpoint, language plays a part in it as well. And the language varies when you study Islamic sciences according to subject. The same way when you're studying in a university. If you ever notice, if you're involved in medicine and law, a lot of their words are derived from Greek, not Greek, I'm sorry, Latin terminology. So it has its own, language. And with Islam as well, although our primary sources is the Quran and the Sunnah and the Ijma, but when you're studying it from a science perspective, there's language pertaining to each particular subject. So when you're saying Sunnah overall, that's outside of the classroom, and you're referring back to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there's a different understanding. When you're talking about Aqidah, right? When you're talking about Islamic beliefs or pertaining to Ilm Kalam, and you use the word Sunnah, it has a different understanding, right? When you're dealing with the word in fiqh, it also gives a different understanding. And that's when you're studying it from the science's standpoint. When you're in general, whereas one Muslim with another Muslim, we're all supposed to learn and study the Quran. We're supposed to know what Allah Ta'ala says. And we're also supposed to study the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and know what he says. So when we're speaking to each other, when we're referring to the Sunnah, it's understood that we're talking about the Prophet ﷺ's uh, practice and method. When you're using it in a particular, in a classroom setting, like if you use the word Sunnah when you're dealing with the belief system, that's referring to the proper belief, right? If you're using it according to fiqh, right? When you're talking about Sunnah, it's referring to that which isn't as strong as the obligation, meaning the from an evidential standpoint with regards to the proof, it's not as strong as maybe the ayat of the Quran. Okay, from that perspective, all right. But never, ever, ever does Sunnah ever mean, oh, it's not mandatory, so don't practice it. This was promoted that Sunnah meant it ain't mandatory, so you don't have to do it. This led to the undermining of a lot of Islamic growth in practice within the United States, because people came in, they were like, yo, mute yourself. You about to come in with all that noise, Saleh.
What noise, man? I ain't even on the
And there
train
you
yet.
go. You already talking. Huh? You already talking. You just
You
came
just
in with
came.
all that noise.
You just came
So,
at me, man. I didn't even do that.
but anyway, um, it comes. It has a meaning when you're studying. Well, anyway, let's get to it. Let's get to the definition. I think I gave enough examples on that. So he says that Sunnah linguistically means a tariqah, a path or a way, and it also means customs. All right. When you're speaking from a language standpoint, like basically a lexicon textbook definition from a dictionary, sunnah means a path or it means a custom. All right. When you're talking about, according to the technical terminology, it's a word it has a combination of meaning worship, and it also means proof. Worship, a particular act of worship, because who do we learn our worship from? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And also a proof. What do we rely on to justify our actions? The sunnah, the behavior of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said it is also he says, so the sunnah with regards to worship is those actions that are nafil, right? Supererogatory actions and behaviors, right? Which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam practiced constantly, or it was understood by it that it was to be done continuously, something that was to be done all the time. Even if its occurrence, it wasn't something that reoccurred all the time. An example of that is like the eclipse prayer, right? Um, some of the companions, they even added to do it in the public. Tarawih prayer during Ramadan. Tarawih isn't prayed every night, right? All year round. It's a specific practice that's done during the month of Ramadan, right? Tarawih is an example of this, okay? And so, anyway, he said, with regards to the sunnah, with regards to proof, it's meant that everything which proceeded from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his words, his deeds, and his decisions, right? Also, what's understood about Sunnah is that Imam Ahmed ibn Ali al-Manjuri, he also added that which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the master of mankind, was silent about his words, his deeds, which were done always, or that in which he had made a decision. That is sunnah. Now, why is it saying his silence? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot let an error happen without him mentioning. I mean, without him being able to speak out about it, right? You know, sometimes when people do actions, they do wrong deeds, and in front of you, and there's times you'll allow it, you'll ignore it and allow it to slide, right? Well, it wasn't like that with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He spoke out because his entire life was a lesson to us. It was a lesson for us to learn from. So now, after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now we have to, because Islam spread and his sunnah had to be taught as well. It's just as important as the Quran, like Imam Muhammad said in the beginning. You don't find the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being excluded from the Quran, which you have modern day today. You know, groups like they call themselves the Quraniyu, you know, the people of the Quran, and all anything they follow is the Quran. So just to show you a couple of things with regards to those people who say they the Quraniyu, they're also liars, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ رَسُولُ فَخْذُهُ right? فَخْذُهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُمْ فَانْتَهُ. Whatever the messenger gives you, take it, and whatever he forbade you, stay away from it. So just that alone, that proof alone in the Quran is one to tell you, and this is in Surah Hashr, Surah 59, Ayat 7. This is a proof that shows you that you have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just one ayat. And there's other ayats, there's many other ayats. So you have to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This isn't something that you can dismiss, right? Now, from that perspective, this is in general what we mentioned. When you're saying sunnah generally, with regards to worship, and then also adillah, and then we also know that it's a custom or practice. Now, a lot of the Muslim nations that embrace Islam, all of these nations that you know around the world, weren't always Muslim countries. Many of them when they embrace Islam, they embrace the Sunnah, and they establish themselves, and they tailored their culture to fit the Sunnah. So, like for instance, if you went to somewhere like in Saudi, right, where majority of the men, they wear a thawb, right, or a jalabiyah, the long robe, right? They may have a particular material, right, a particular color. It may be a material from that particular land where they stitch it up. The same thing likewise with regards to women. There's a certain style of dress and things of that nature. But if you go the same thing, you go to let's say Russia, and you find Muslims there, right? And we're talking about Muslims that's strong and uncompromising in their Islamic practice. You'll find them, they may have different material of clothing, but you'll find that their clothing are long, right? It comes down to the ankles, right? It's no lower than the ankles. It stops at the ankles, right? It's not form-fitting, okay? But however, this becomes that style. And this this is what is understood as Sunnah style dress, meaning it's long, it's covering the private areas, both men and women. It's not form fitting, right? You don't see the silhouette of someone's body, right? So when you go from place to place, you'll see that one style. It may be a long attire, loose fitting, like I said, but the material may not be the same. The material can be whatever the culture, the cultural practice of that. Now, the thing against brighter colors is sometimes it can be, it can draw attention to you unnecessarily, right? sometimes with things with a lot of patterns and things of that nature, can the designs can be distracting, if one is praying or praying behind someone with, and then also there's a whole thing against drawing with praying with animated inanimated with objects, pictures and things of that nature on your clothing, right? You be mindful of that as well. However, if you ever notice today in the Salat ranks, sometimes the men are wearing extremely skin tight, almost like scuba diving type clothes, or, spandex, to pray in the ranks, and their t-shirts are stopping right at the waist, that if they raise their hands, their belly buttons will be shown, right? And there's a certain what's been established, a certain area and the style of dress that men are supposed to be, clothed and wearing, for the prayer. And that's not the only thing that regards to the sunnah. The way you eat, right? You have to eat with your right hand. Even if you're left-handed, you have to learn how to eat with your right hand. When you use the restroom, you cannot just wipe yourself with your right hand. You have to use your left hand, right? If you're right-handed, then you have to learn how to be left-handed in that case. Muhammad spoke about utilizing the bathroom. You know, who has defined and told men that they have to stand up in order to urinate? That you standing up urinating is masculine, right? And remember, if you go back to the definition of what we spoke about with sunnah, is also known as an adat. I didn't want to use the Arabic term, but a custom, right? A practice. Well, according to Western lifestyle, standing and urinating is considered masculine. But according to our practice as Muslims, what was displayed by the Prophet ﷺ was that you sit, or squat when you urinate. And believe it or not, you'll realize when you get older, it has medical benefits as well. It clears out the entire bladder, right? A lot of the urinary problems that we develop as time goes on, and where people have certain practices of incontinence and things of that nature, some of that is because our bladder is never fully empty, because when men particularly, they're standing and urinating, right? Some cultures and societies, not only do they have a toilet where you sit down on, but they also have a box stool for the feet in order to push the feet up, near the for them to elevate in a more squatting style, for a person to use the bathroom, in order to get the full, push and clean out. So not only is it something that is from the practice of our religion, but it also has medical purpose, as well in it, that can help with the health, you know. Um, I mean, we can continue to go on, and there's in every aspect that you can think of. When you wash, right? We don't just take showers no more. We have to make ghusl, right? And one of the sunnahs in making ghusl is that you don't use a whole lot of water. So you're more mindful about the water usage, right? When you drink, you shouldn't just drink and just gulp back, just throw it and just chug it down, but rather you take sip, you give yourself time to get air, right? You take another sip, however, when you're drinking it, but you take a break in between. You don't just chug it back, right? So there's many practices. Now, over the years, there were some people, some Muslims, that was dedicated to upholding the sunnah, and and everything with us in America is always movement oriented, and it's always very like hostile, and you know you ain't doing this, then you like that, and so on and so forth. Everything, there's always an opposite right next to, right next to, there's basically an opponent right next to each other, right? So like you have right now, like you have the issue with Israel, and then you have Palestine right there, one versus the other, right? And so, and then how it affects us here, because you have the same thing here. We're not on the land, on the ground, engaged in a war, but people don't like the oppression. But then you got the other group that's arguing from the, the person who may be, or the group that's responsible for the oppression. And so now you got two groups. So you had the same thing. You had the people who were dedicated. They were like, look, man, these people are ignorant of Islam. It's more than just, more to Islam than just, what they're telling you. And we're trying to show you this particular way. But if you were to sit down and take this method of approach and just to teach people, it's kind of boring, right? So in order to make it spicy, leaders, imams, teachers, they almost have to become entertainers, right? Almost like rappers, all right? And then you preaching to people, and then you have in each and every individual that you're teaching and preaching to, they have their own, personalities, and then they have people that they influence, and this is how the people become an influx of people becoming Muslim. So usually the method was, look, don't pray over there because they don't follow the Sunnah, right? Now, honestly, the contradictory part of this is that we've been advocating for years that this has no place in Islam, but it actually does. Well, a person who purposely avoids the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu, you're not to give that person that type of shine and that leeway, because it's supposed to make that person realize and return back to the Sunnah. But the problem is that if the person doesn't have any love for the people that are boycotting them, they don't see it as an actual lesson, but what they actually see it is just basically like, yo, you just mad because we don't follow you, and we over here, we following this, and this, that, and the third. And so then you have this long whole fight going on, right? And there's no real building on that. All you're doing is making people aware of certain issues, and then it's getting exaggerated. So if I'm part of group A, where we say, yo, all we follow is the Quran and Sunnah, but we have a deviant belief, right? And we look the part of the Muslim, but our Aqidah, our belief is off, right? And then you have group B who say, no, they don't have the right belief, right? Not only do they not have the right belief, but, they dress like Muslims, and, tell people you got to dress like that and you don't have to dress like that. That's America. That's America today, right? And so then what happens, one part, and I'm not just focusing just on dress, we're just using dress as the quickest example that you'll see. And, and as time went on, it went on to this whole thing. Well, how do you know that the kufi is this? And how do you know that you wear a turban? There's hadiths on these things. There's hadith on these things. But because we want to oppose the other person, and we think the other person don't know, or we thought we stumped them, right? Then you develop a whole movement, right? So then, and I remember, like imams would give khutbahs and things of that nature, and make mockery, which is an act of disbelief, make mockery of women who dress, wore full veil, maybe even wore darker colors, particularly black or dark blue and things of that nature, and calling them ninjas and saying men have on dresses and things of that nature as their way of having a rebuttal against the people who dress like that, and so on and so forth. And if you take it back and go back probably about as far as my research led me to, like maybe the 1500s, maybe 1400s, where European colonization started going on around the world. It was a global launch. That's when that's when Islamic attire and other Islamic practices begin to become under attack. Saying, well, how do you know if you really have to do this? Sunnah really means this, because you can't just change your people without establishing an intellectual base for them to convince them that they're following the right thing. All right. So with regards to that, we're talking in that regards. And so then what happened is that as we are beginning, many of us are, new first, second, third generation, meaning grandpop, pop, and now son are Muslim, right? And as we establish ourselves, if you notice, our communities is growing, but we're not having people who's memorizing the Quran, right? That's something that's known as a Muslim practice, being concerned about that. But you have people that's constantly rejecting learning how to recite the Quran. People are butchering and reading and reciting the Quran, not with the rules of tajweed, right? Not with the rules in the recitation of the Messenger of Allah, right? They're not learning that. And then also The other party that's guilty is the individuals who migrate to America that have the knowledge of these particular things. They're not disseminating that knowledge either. They're keeping that knowledge with them, right? So therefore, this is also another thing that's problematic. And then those who migrate and go, to the lands where the majority of Muslims there, and when they come back, they're too busy trying to build themselves and solidify themselves and establish like this, almost this archdiocese type of setting, almost like these Catholic, like a Catholic leadership, where you can't challenge them, and not even so much challenge them, but they do no wrong, and they become almost like in a position where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticizes, the people of the book, meaning the Jew and the Christian, because the people of revelation, they had a revelation, becoming like them, where they're changing the ayats, right? Changing the definition of things, the meaning of things, and so on and so forth. So a lot plays part in that. But there's no, when you don't include the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your day-to-day life, right? What are you using as your point of building your family around? Are you still going to build them up on the customs and the practices that you've done growing up? Because you have to see, in order to follow and understand the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have to see Islam superior to your lifestyle, to your practices that you grew up on. Even if it's pop who established that, and so on and so forth. If it's something that's contradictory, you have to abandon that. Perfect example, Allah Ta'ala gave you an example of that. They use that in the Quran, that statement when you're referring to the other prophets, and they, and it's something that was established, they'll refer to it as the Sunnah of Allah, right? The way of Allah. And if you look at it, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, his father was one of the biggest, mushrikeen, one of the biggest idol worshippers, right? And Allah Ta'ala narrates that story to us in the Quran, right? And he had nothing to do with his father with regards with him and that idol worship, right? He didn't accept it. Many of us will have a dilemma. We're like, man, I really can't go against my mom. Especially you find this a lot, they have their children, going to Juma on Friday, but still going to, Easter services when Easter come around, or going to Thanksgiving and leading the Thanksgiving prayer at Thanksgiving time. That's next week. A lot of Muslims going to be doing a lot of crazy stuff during that time, right? And so on and so forth. Or they get invited to these holiday parties, right, where they know they shouldn't even be around anywhere where there's any type of intoxicants going on, but wanting to fit in and, blend in, and refusing to separate yourself, in standing out and being different, right, as you're supposed to, not just for the sake of just doing it, but as you're supposed to. We find excuses in ways to blend in, and then we start sinning, and then we got the nerve to be upset if someone tries to check us. Or it depends on the person, they'll just make up their own thing as they go along. They start winging it, right? So these things, and it deters and it alters. So now when you're using the language of usul, right, this is another science, and this is what I want to get to. People are telling the truth, but they're also liars, meaning they'll make a true statement, but they intend to lie behind that to misguide you. Okay, you'll take and use the word sunnah, right, which is understood as another word mustahab, right, or mendu. You hear these three terms, okay, and it's being referred to in action where you'll receive reward for doing the action. But if you don't do the action, if you happen to leave it, or what I'm saying, leaving it, not leaving it like I don't want to do this, but leaving it maybe because maybe you weren't able to do it today, or something of that nature, there's no sin or punishment for you, right? Versus something that is a wajib, an obligatory action, right? You get reward for doing it, but you're also considered sinful if you abandon it. Okay, that's the difference between the two, right? So, but what we've grown to understand here in the West, because it's being pushed by our leaders and people that we trust, they're saying, hey, it's only sunnah, you ain't got to do it. Now, I don't know about you, but one thing that you have to understand, in our Islamic learning and practices, is that there's a thing, it's called the wazn of a'mal, right? The scale of actions, of weighing actions. So all the actions that you do that are good, they go on the scale, and if it makes the right side heavy, then you'll enter paradise. Then you have, the left side. If the left side is heavy and the right side is light, then this is an indication that you're going to spend some time in the fire, right? So to dedicate a whole, make and create a whole new type of deen, because this isn't the deen that the Prophet ﷺ came with, to create a specific type of deen, you're creating a whole new religion where you tell people, you know, you don't have to do the sunnah. It ain't even no big deal. It ain't even a sin if you leave it. But what about the good and the good deeds? Don't we need our scale to be heavy on the day of judgment? So why wouldn't we be encouraging each other, right, to continue to do good? We are quick to turn away. And you got to remember, many of us, we're coming from a dark place of kufr, right? We're coming from a dark place of disbelief. And then the very thing that guided humanity, Allah Ta'ala said that He sent the Prophet ﷺ as Rahmatul lil Alameen, that He was a mercy to all of mankind, and you're telling us to ignore His Sunnah because it's not something that's mandatory on you. Then what is the purpose of a wajib action? You also get reward for that. The difference between wajib and Sunnah is that you don't get a sin for leaving it. We can't always live our life on a baseline and bare minimum. When you live your life on a baseline and bare minimum, then therefore you get bare minimum production. This is why you might find a woman wearing a kimar with tight shirt and pants showing the silhouette of her body, right? She doesn't care about the way she dressed, right? At least the women back in the day who didn't, fully cover their body, at least they used to say, hey, I gotta be modest. They had like some, and they gave their interpretation of the word of modesty, right? When you come into Islam, Islam has a certain set of rules. It's one thing if you just ain't there yet, you ain't up to that level, right? Look, I just haven't got there yet, and it still ain't an excuse. But it's better than you lying on Allah and His Messenger, or lying and saying this isn't something you really have to do necessarily, right? So this is, this is where I'm gonna open up, for the brothers, inshallah. For this, as this person who asked this question, I think I covered it. No, I'm sorry, this one right here. I think I covered your answered your question. Now, with regards to hadith, the hadiths are narrations on behalf of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So you're being informed about it, and all hadith had to go through a rigorous chain of authentication, right? But however, that's from a scientific standpoint. Most of the time, when we're reading as an everyday, day-to-day person, if you're reading the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, I don't think there's too many hadiths in there where you're going to find, and we're not walking around, having a scholastic debate. So you're not going to find a lot of rhetoric with regards to those hadiths. If you practice them, then you're practicing the Sunnah, right? In a good portion of the hadith of Riyadh al-Salihin, the same thing. These are books that you can take on a day-to-day and establish for yourself. Don't establish no rulings, but just put them into your everyday practice, where you'll find hadiths in there that tell you about keeping good intentions, right? You keep your good intentions, and then you learn about the various hadiths in there that are talking about intentions, right? And there's many lessons and jewels to take from that. You learn about eating with your right hand. You learn about walking to the masjid and wudu. You learn about and you learn about the benefit of it and how you benefit from it. Reading the Quran, praying tahajjud, things of that nature. These are hadiths that leads to the Sunnah, right? Anything else outside of that, you're gonna be getting into science. Now, I want to see, this is my challenge to myself And my brothers, don't get too scientific on everybody tonight. Let's just encourage them just to practice the Sunnah in general. Because what happened in our times too, things are misplaced. When you're a person of practicing tajdeed revival, as Imam Muhammad earlier had mentioned, you're almost like an operator, or a person that's fixing things and putting things in its proper place. So let's see if we can do that without getting too technical tonight. Right? And that's one of the biggest problems. And like I said, sometimes it depends on what the person is trying to tell you and trying to say to you. They're telling you the truth, but they intend to lie behind it, meaning that they're trying to give you some other misguided notion. Somebody mentioned, I was told that my colors are disturbing at the masjid. However, I understood. I thought Allah Ta'ala said dress your breast best. Yes, but there's certain colors, there's certain things that men can't wear silk. Men can't wear gold. Right? So although you wear and you put on your best clothing, but they still have to fall in that parameter within that guidelines of the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is also what Allah Ta'ala commands us, because Allah Ta'ala said He sent the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to guide mankind. Right? So therefore, what is established with that is established. If you don't know, there's no harm. If you don't know, there's no harm. So you want to, when you're going out, you go into the masjid, you want to be least distracting as possible. Let's put it like that. I know, if you grew up in America, one of the things was, go back and watch an old movie from the 70s, especially some old Black Pimp movie, right? Dudes used to wear fishbowl shoes and big high behind platform shoes, big bell bottoms, walking so they clickety clacky and things of that nature. The same way, if you read the tafsir pertaining to a lot of the ayats that's pertaining to women in their dress, right? In Surah Al-Ahzab, the 33rd surah in the Quran, when you read the tafsir and things of that nature, the women used to wear anklets in order to, when they walk, it would jiggle in order to catch the attention of men. So the only difference is the time period, and maybe the instrument that's used to distract. You're supposed to be modest as possible, meaning drawing least amount of attention as possible, right? So if that was the case, it depends on what you was wearing. I can't say if it was distracting or not. Maybe the person said it. Sometimes some people are being facetious, some people are being sincere, right? But just try to be as that. And what was that color the Prophet ﷺ spoke against? Was it saffron, like a reddish type color? Like red. So it's certain colors, like you're discouraged from wearing. And some people say, no, I
It
got
was saffron. It was saffron.
it's saffron, right? Yeah. So these play a major part, in our Islamic establishment as well. And it's also when you start to, in this show, like I said, this podcast ain't about just clothing. Clothing is always the first thing that's always discussed. You know what I mean? Because that's the first thing you see is clothing, right?
But Imam
Especially women.
Khalil,
A lot of our men ain't even dressing like Muslims now.
but Imam Khalil, but that's why you brought up a great point. Not to cut
Mm-hmm.
you off,
No, you good.
not to make you land, but you brought up a great point where you said that everything has a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you said that earlier. Like, think about when it says you have to have our prime example. Me and you work for Lifeline.
Right.
We may not apply by the rules, which she may put the smackdown on us. But what is our uniform? You must have a Lifeline jacket,
Mm-hmm.
the polo shirt. These are the
Mm-hmm.
criteria that you must meet. Some things when you go on Wall Street, you must have a slacks, tie, pant. Your button up must be tucked into your pants. And with a belt. These are the tires of everything. So so sometimes we kind of get distracted by that, but the zahir, the outer, when we just think about the zahir, the outer appearance of Islam, right? It is required by how we look too, right? Is an identity of explanation, expression of who you are, right? So even when we think of the beard, right? the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's told the men to grow the beard. So this here is a sunnah for the men, right? Is a sunnah, but is a command, is a highly recommended sunnah for the men, right? So I was talking to Imam Khalil earlier. I said if identity, right? Identity means a major factor, right? We're so proud of being everything else, and we're so proud to look like everything else besides what we should be identifying with, right? If you want to be technical, when we wear the sunnah, the clothing of the people here, a lot of the clothing, if you want to be technical, are made by, you know, those people, homosexuals. So we're walking around here with the expression identifying ourselves by the people who are like this, you know, with the LGB, and you know, we want to be on the honest side, right? So why not identify ourselves as of the people who look like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, of identifying ourselves to look like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now with the women, right? Speaking of that, you know, as what Imam Khalil said, let's not try to get scientific and speak about the Sunnah. Find out what the women around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they wore. Haste to it, run to it, implement it, right? But we can't deny, you know, the outward actions outside of the Sunnah acts, you know, of just, you know, because if you even thinking about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fasted this, you know, fasted on this particular day, yeah, the day is the sun, you know, how when he fasts is the sunnah, but fasting itself is what Imam Khalil is fard. Is in you know, the Prophet ﷺ said our religion is built upon 5: fasting during the month of Ramadan, right? So fasting is an obligation, right? Yeah, ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyama, right? That, you know, fasting was prescribed to you. You know, not getting too deep into the ayat, but the ayat speaks of it was prescribed to you as it was prescribed to the people before you. So fasting is the obligation, right?
So,
but just
I just want to add to that point. So, like, basically, what you're saying is just to give it clear. When you fast on those particular days, or those particular things, of it becomes a sunnah because the Prophet ﷺ was he's a legislator, and he done so. You know, he made it that way. So he fast Monday and Thursday. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that, you know, there's blessings on it. It's the middle path of fasting Mondays and Thursdays. There's also recommended times of fasting 3 days out of a month, right? Now, the thing I just want to add to that you mentioned fasting, this is why I interrupted. Usually when you do those things, it's not a thing you just pick it up. I'm feeling good today, let me fast today. It's usually a thing that you commit to, because it's not an obligation, right? And this is why you're being rewarded with Jannah behind doing these actions. Then also remember the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Oh, if you love Allah, then follow me. Right? Then Allah ta'ala said, يَحِبُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. Right? Then Allah ta'ala will forgive you, right? He'll love you and he'll forgive you. Right? So therefore, by becoming the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, that desire to be loved by Allah, then you'll imitate and emulate the one whom Allah ta'ala loves as well, and that's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
All right, correct. Right. And, you know, we got to take heed of that, you know, because other than that, we're going to be implementing the sunnah of other people, right? As Imam Khalil was breaking down, like, I'm just going to piggyback off what he was saying, that, you know, you have people with their own, pushing their own narrative. And sometimes we'll get so, you know, as he said that, you know, the sunnah, well, this is recommended, almost saying that it's something you don't have to do when you get rewarded it. But we're implementing the sunnah of the scholars, that we're praising the scholars more, to the point where the scholars are a path to get to the sunnah, right? Is a path to get to the sunnah, that we're doing the acts of them instead of the acts of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That you hear so many, you know, so many other teachers speaking about things of tasawwuf, and well, this sheikh said, this sheikh said, this sheikh. Well, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? To the point where we're not even quoting hadith that much anymore, right? But we would explain so much of what a scholar said over what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Where Imam Haddad said in his book, the book of assistance, he said, adhere to the good manners of the sunnah outwardly and inwardly, right? Outwardly and inwardly, right? So the outward aspects is just important. As I broke down before, that he said in his book as well, that if you cannot make your inward better than your outward, at least keep them on the same level, right? So your outward activities must be coherent with your inward, or your inward must be better. But the outward also means a lot. Where Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when people used to do bad trade and he found out about it and he looked Muslim, he warned, he told everyone who was not Muslim to shave your beard, do not dress like us, do not talk like us, do not act like us. So it's very important to show this, right? And I'm not saying that we all must walk around with thobes and things of this nature, but we must some sort, identify ourselves by being Muslim, right? It's to the point now when you're walking in the street, if a Muslim shave his beard, how would you know someone is Muslim? Okay, he may have, the barakah of Allah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he may have a prostration mark. But what if this person prayed on a soft rug in the masjid his entire life, right? You won't be able to know who's Muslim. So identity means a lot, so we can be able to aid, protect, and these things like that. We can't be scared of that. But it's not the primary focus. The primary focus is to run to the sunnah. It's to run to the sunnah, right? Don't look at it as, what was told to me. Oh, is this fard or is this and this is recommended? No, let's get out of what is recommended. No, it's the sunnah. Let's say the sunnah, something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he did himself, and that we should love to do it because he did it. If we express it like that, then people will run. If you express something like, well, you can do it, well, you don't have to do it, but this is more important, but you don't have to do this. But like Imam Khalil said, right? If you just went off the bare minimum, where would we be? And if you want to, like I said, let's get technical again. If you want to be technical, we don't even know if our daily fard actions are even being accepted. So why not chase it with the sunnah? Why not follow it up with that? If we don't even know if our daily expressions of show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being accepted, why not follow it up with the sunnah? Why not? Why not haste that? Right? We try to seek approval of everything else, of everyone else's sunnah, right? Everyone else's, but why not of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And Imam Haddad also spoke about in his book. I'm gonna read a portion of this. He said, if it would be pleasing to you to become one of the true Siddiqun, then do not habituate yourself to any kind of behavior until you study and ascertain whether the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, any of his companions, or any of the leaders thus behaved. So we should find out, right? Why? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Talab al-ilmi faridun ala kulli muslim." In another narration, "Talab al-ilmi faridun ala kulli muslimin wa muslimat." That seeking knowledge is obligatory for every Muslim man and Muslim woman. So you should find out, what did they do? As I told you, sister, if that was a sister, well, it is a sister, forgive me. Find out what the women wore, right? As I was talking to another Imam, on the live, I said to him that, do you know that it's a sunnah for us to wear all white on Jumu'ah and for the sisters to wear all black on Jumu'ah, right? And this is in the Shafi method. We're not going to get too deep in the method, but it's a sunnah, and we have our evidences on why we dress like that. Again, the Prophet ﷺ dressed like this, and the women around the Prophet ﷺ dressed like this during his day. So why not dress like that? Why not do that? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also speak about, the adornments of white clothing in the Quran. Right? So we got to stop looking at the sunnah as something that, it's just something to do when you feel like doing it. Because let's be real, you know what I mean? Like, if you went to work and they'd be like, look, all of us witnessed that, right? We looking for overtime, right? They'd be like, look, I'm gonna pay you so and so amount of, for this overtime. We gonna run to it. Look, it's overtime. I need these couple dollars. Why not? We need this for our akhirah. How about that? We need it for our akhirah. None of us is perfect. All of us sin openly, and some of us sin secretly. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of the stuff you are hiding. Right? So why not get that extra money? If you want to jump in, Imam Khalil, you could jump in. Alhamdulillah. I'll just piggyback off you.
No. Those are all good points that you're making. Where Muhammad go? He went to sleep.
Yeah, he probably knocked out.
Nah, he up over there. He just got his camera off because he had it on a while ago.
Man, I'm starving like a hostage, man. I'm eating me some chicken.
Okay, comment says my husband always reminds me of keeping the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Should we follow the Sunnah more, we really wouldn't have many issues we have now. Absolutely. So one of the good things is like this, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encourages men to be good to their women. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the best of you in Islam is the ones who are good to their families, right? There's also another hadith, that encourages men to spend on a family, right? It's considered a sadaqah for them, meaning it's rewardable, because sometimes as men, you have money, you like, look, man, I ain't got it. I ain't got it. I ain't got it. We don't really need that. We don't really need that. That's also a way of encouraging, to spend, not blow all your money, not spend, recklessly. Of course, it's after everything, the priorities are taken care of, but it's encouraged, to do those type of things. You
The
start to
expression of
begin
love.
your relationships based on that, then you'll start to see more, and build like a person, like I'll probably say something also encourages our sisters, you know, that the husband, the pleasure of your husband, he's your path to paradise or he's your path to the hellfire, right? You can't just disregard, his feelings towards a thing, right? And sometimes you have that a lot, in marriages. Like, man, go ahead, man, it ain't even that serious. Man, go ahead, and ain't that. No, it is serious because the Prophet said this, right? That's when it becomes serious. So you have to start to take that thing serious based on that. The Prophet tell men to be gentle with women, right? Reminding them of how fragile they are. So sometimes you have to cater. You have to cater to that feeling sometimes, right? You have to know, not where sway you to make major decisions. Because like I had all kind of people, people say all kinds of things. Oh, you make your wife cry, you're gonna go to the hellfire. That's not true, But however, you have to lower that, because Islam and Allah Ta'ala in general, Allah and the Messenger Sallallahu always encourages you to show that mercy. When you're harsh and you can't lower your wing, your wing of humiliation towards another believer, especially your family, you're a person that lack mercy, right? Think about the man in the hadith that Imam Bukhari reported in his book Adab al-Mufrad, where the man, he said, the Prophet ﷺ had kissed his grandson, and the man said, "Yo, you kissed his kids?" He's like, "Man, I got 11 kids and I ain't kissed not one of them." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "It's not my fault that Allah hasn't given you any of His mercy." All right, so you being compassionate towards your children, right, is a sunnah. Being compassionate towards your wife is a sunnah. Being thoughtful and mindful of your husband's likes and dislikes is a sunnah. You see? So these type of things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Barakallahu fikum. That's a good point that you brought that out. Mashallah, Facebook user. It don't give me your name. So if I knew your name, I'll tell you, I will call you by your name. Alhamdulillah. Go ahead, Saleh or Muhammad over there grubbing on that chicken. Y'all can go ahead, But no, this just one of the things is, as myself and others, we want to put the science terms back in the classrooms, and we want to start living by the general terms, like when we use the word sunnah, right? Because a lot of our Islamic practices are falling by the wayside because people are using sometimes the term is true, but what they intend is a lie, and they starting to discourage people from it. That's why a lot of men don't pray to man shit like they used to.
Like I was just reading here, right? Like I said,
Mhm.
this is and I'm quoting from this book for all the the chef who uses how it's just even reading this, the first sunnah that they dive in is the appearance. So
Mhm.
this is why I brought that up to to this to the brother, if anyone's seen, to the brother, is that it's speaking even in the books that you are teaching how important this is.
Right.
Right? We have to have an identity, right? And I gave I spoke about the cookbook yesterday when I went to the college. I said we have to be proud to be Muslims. We have to identify ourselves as being Muslims.
No.
Show that we are Muslims. Be proud of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says here in the book, he said, try never to do anything habitual without first forming a good intention, right? We all know that. These are based upon intention. You know, we're very big on that in the Shafi school. I don't know about you Maliki brothers, but in the Shafi school, yeah, we everything, right? When you put your clothes on, intend to cover the parts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you to cover. Put the right sleeve of your shirt, similar garment first, and take it off last. Do not allow your clothes, your cloth, your wrap around the lower half of your body or your shirt to go further down than the middle of your shin. If you will not do this, then lower the ankles. Women are allowed to let their dresses down to the ground, all sides, but not let them trail more than 2/3 of a forearm length. Shorten the sleeves of your shirt to the wrist of the fingertips, and if you make it go beyond that, do not be excessive. So even just going into this, it starts off by talking about the clothes, and he says here that shorten the sleeves to your shirt again to the fingertips. If you make it beyond that, do not be excessive. The sleeves of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was down to his wrist, and Ali shortened the sleeves of his shirt so that it did not go beyond the fingertips. I spoke about that too. So this how important it is. This how important it is of having an identity.
Right.
Of having an identity. And like I said, it's not just talking about the clothing, but it's having an identity, embedding the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Yeah. And the best thing is by showing that we are the people of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? It's showing these things, right? We got it, especially in this time and age now where people are scared, right, to express that they are Muslims. It was one thing you saw was crack on about when you like, yeah, these brothers be in the store, they don't even be Muhammad no more, their name be Mo. Right? Name be Mo, right? This is an identity. You have the best name from the best of mankind. And you're scared to be called Muhammad? Or you rather be called Mo? Who is Mo? What is Mo? Who is Mo, right? We'd rather be called, you're right. One of the brothers, excuse me, man, but I was upset with them, when he spoke to me. Yes, I ain't going to say their brother's name. He's telling people, yeah, my name is AR. Brother, your name is Abdul Rashid, man, not AR. Why are you calling yourself a gun, man? Right? Express who you are, brother. You ain't AR. You Abdul Rashid. You ain't AR, bro. Right? So it's like, identify yourself for who you are. These are beautiful names, right? But we're so caught up of trying, like you said, to please everyone around us. Like you said, we're places we ain't supposed to be. And it's to the point now, Habibi, when we neglect what the Prophet ﷺ said to hide your sins, we're exposing them all the time on social media, man.
No.
All the time.
Yeah. No.
You may see somebody now, brothers and sisters, Friday come, throw, he dressed up, just left Jumu'ah. Friday night come, man, oh man. He got a bottle of Henny in his hand. He all in the joint, middle fingers up. He dropping sets, street names with the middle finger. Dang, brother, you were just pious 3 hours ago, man.
Well, not only that though, but he took off that attire. I'm telling you that Islamic attire does something to you. It keeps you mindful, make other people mindful, of Allah Ta'ala as well. Keeps you mindful, like, yo, let me chill. I'm out here, I'm a kufi. Because some people,
you're gonna look stupid.
They that weak, I remember when Muslims used to hide, almost burn their hand off because they be smoking cigarettes when you walk by. You're like, so they go, oh, why they about to burn themselves up, right? Not fearing the real fire. The real fire is the fire that Allah Ta'ala will burn you with the hellfire. May Allah protect us all. Ameen. You know what I'm saying? So, they're not worried about those things. They're just worried about what's to be seen,
Right,
so, I mean, we get back to that and we start putting everything with the Prophet about that, and for those people that ain't engaged in dawah, it has to be about that. Look at all of the people that Allah Ta'ala blessed him, right? Imam Ashari, right? Abu Hassan al-Ashari. He was against the Mubtadi, or people of innovation, right? And particularly at that time, his biggest opponent was the Mu'tazila, right? At that time, because that group of Mu'tazila, they even they even held political position, meaning they had the ear of the Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the supporting them and everything. You know why he was so famous and considered one of the top mujaddid? It's because it was about the son of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There's a story about Imam Shafi. He said Imam Shafi, rahmatullahi alayhi, when he went to Misr, you know, they was, oh, call him Malik. And then he started narrating the hadiths of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the people, right? In order to revive. And we have to keep these type of things in mind when we're trying to revive Islam, that we don't get stuck with the labels, right? Because the impression that it gives off is two impressions. Number one, that only the scholars are the people of piety, while the common people, you just shut up and listen, right? No, you encourage the everyday person to practice the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's why you're learning those things, in order to continue to disseminate the knowledge to people who are able to take it and go that far. But the common people, the everyday 9 to 5 brothers, aren't left out either. They're responsible for learning the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Wa alaikum salam. They're responsible for learning, and disseminating the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They're responsible for knowing how to read the Quran. These things, this is what's known as mujahida, where you're doing struggle. You know how everybody always been, ever since 9/11, everybody be like, jihad doesn't mean military fighting. It just means to do struggle, that you struggle. Well, this is what mujahida is, where you're struggling against the nafs, against the ego, right? And making it submit. Submit to what? Submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? By doing those things. The Prophet ﷺ showed us how to do those things. So, if y'all are done, I'll be done for the night too, inshallah. Muhammad, Saleh, if y'all done, we done. Y'all let me know.
I'm done.
Saleh, you got any
I'm
closing
done,
remarks? Get the closing
mashallah.
remarks, man. Get y'all closing remarks, inshallah. Hey, everybody, don't forget to like, share, heart the thing up, encourage other people,
I had a
subscribe
long day like everybody else,
to
man.
Allah. So,
Mufti Nas took me out of the wood where he had me come to his program. I had to rush back.
so we want to see them likes and shares, brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah. So, you got any closing remarks? Anybody got closing remarks? And then Muhammad can take us home.
I don't have any closing remarks.
No, I'm good. I'm good, man.
Pretty much touched on everything.
No.
Alhamdulillah
You
Rabbil Alameen.
told me to dumb it down. You know what I mean? I had to put the 357 back in the closet.
Yeah, because sometimes the information.
You don't even like a revolver, man. It's about 357.
Alhamdulillah, barakallahu fikum. Yeah, it's
Fofo
sometimes you got to
revolver
keep
is
it
my
simple for
problem
people.
solver.
Remember with the Prophet sallallahu, he was known as Jawamul Kalam, right? He had the most beneficial, most comprehensive of speech, that the most intelligent man can get a lot out of what he said, and the person with the simplest, the simplest mind state can understand everything he said. So hopefully, that's what we done. We made things simple, and then we also made people, for those in the more astute individuals, we alerted them to start thinking and walking towards that path of higher learning, inshallah. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'm almost 900, 100% sure and certain I'm going to do get back to our Muwatta class, the Muwatta Imam Malik, inshallah. That'll be tomorrow night. I think I usually do it at like 8:30, inshallah. So just look out for it. It'll be posted. I haven't really posted that class on Facebook. I always post it on just what you call it. I usually just post it for YouTube and those students who are actually involved in it. But it'll be on YouTube. It won't be on Facebook. But I share it. But if you want to share it, you can share it. But I'm just recording on YouTube and YouTube alone, inshallah.
Like
Then,
I'm gonna start my fit class next week, inshallah ta'ala. I just wanted to find out what time. So inshallah ta'ala, I'm gonna be doing that around 8 o'clock.
okay. Everybody be on the lookout for
And
instead Sully. Mm-hmm.
and everybody who's also in tune, who I sent out the sister request of the sisters only Quran circle to learn how to read the Quran. Make sure you have your books ready for tomorrow. Your class will be starting at 2:30 as well, inshallah.
So you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, for the sisters, yeah, I got a Arabic class for them
Oh,
Okay,
tomorrow
good, good.
afternoon. Okay,
tomorrow
2:30
afternoon.
tomorrow afternoon.
Mhm.
No, inshallah. All right, see, we doing stuff. You see, we doing it. No matter what our detractors say about us.
Sunday, right? Your class is Sunday, right?
Yeah,
Sunday
my
two
class
thirty.
Sunday. Your class
Sunday
Sunday
at
2:30.
2:30.
What platform you using?
No, it's strictly for them.
Okay, copy.
I mean, it's strictly for the ones who want to learn. Sometimes it ain't. It's I want them to learn, and if the class get bigger later on after I go over the book, then it'd be a
Mhm.
bigger class setting. But so far it's strictly on on the messenger app. If I ain't add you in, sisters, y'all can add people in as well, and it just be for the call. Have your book ready, and we're going over that.
No, inshallah.
Because we're in the saving souls. We're not looking for views, y'all.
Mm-hmm. No,
Man, you
inshallah.
got and you have to know how to read the Quran before getting into any other books on Arabic. Not getting ahead of yourself and you don't know how to read the Quran in Arabic.
If you want to get in it, I guess you have to email inbox Brother Saleh or somebody, inshallah, and then he'll do it from there. Cause Facebook user said I'm not in it, so all right.
Who's not in it?
I guess you'll find out when they inbox you.
Yeah, just
When they
inbox me,
inbox
let me
you,
know.
No.
Oh, and donate too. I think Abu Muhammad wanted. He already got a tablet. No, he don't. He did want a tablet, but I still need my Apple Pen, y'all. I'm
You're
still
good.
waiting for my Apple Pen. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, mashallah. All right, so Muhammad, I guess you give us a dua. Go ahead and take it out of here.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق وناصر الحق بالحق وهذه إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره مقدار العظيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولك الكريم آمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi
Wa
ta'ala wa
alaikum salam.
barakatuh.